to cast and deny 1 psychic power per round, but the more warlocks are in the unit, the stronger they get. So if you have 5 or 4 warlocks, you will be able to know and cast 2 powers a turn instead of just the normal 1. So we have our 3 elements. We have Yvraine, we have the Farseer, and we have the Warlocks. But what do we exactly need for this combo to be pulled off? What psychic powers do we need and so forth? So with Yvraine, we're going to start out with Word of the Phoenix and Gaze of Ynnari. With the Farseer, Crushing Orb and Focus Will. And for the Warlocks, we're going to have 4 Warlocks with Singing Spears, Protect, Jinx, Quicken, and Restrain. And lastly, a Falcon to bring them into the battle. So here is how the combo is going to work step by step. Step 1, you're going to bring the unit in, so Yvraine, the Farseer, and the Warlocks, in with the Falcon's Cloud Strike ability to drop them within 12 inches of an enemy unit, preferably one close to other units. And the cool thing about this is that even if they choose to use something like Auspex Scan or something like that, Yvraine has Word of the Phoenix to heal up the Warlocks after the enemy shoots them. Step 2, you're going to cast offensive psychic powers at an enemy unit, and you should be able to throw out about 4 to 5 offensive psychic powers, including Crushing Orb, Gaze of Ynnari, and about 3 smites from this combination. And that should be enough to kill a unit of 5 pretty much outright. Jinx can also be used to cast debuffs on enemy saves for the shooting phase, and Restrain can deny enemy actions and prevent units from being able to charge Yvraine and her Warlocks. And the cool thing is this synergizes with the Ynnari as well. If you destroy your target, the Ynnari can actually come in and cast his psychic powers, like Storm of Whispers, in addition to using his shooting attack in the shooting phase. Step 3, the Farseer, Warlocks, and Falcon open up with their shooting attacks and finish off their targets, or just do additional damage to surrounding units. So what I also like about this combination versus the typical Alpha Strike combination that's been, winning tournaments and stuff like that for the Ynnari, is that this combination is a little bit more secure in when and where you use it, because you can easily postpone using this until turn 2 or 3, so that gives you a little bit more flexibility in when and where you bring in the Ynnari to do massive damage to enemy units. And step 4, at this point your opponent's going to be forced to shoot at the Warlocks, and each one that dies is going to give Yvraine an additional psychic power. Yvraine then can cast Word of the Phoenix to revive fallen Warlocks to keep them at peak efficiency. So as long as they don't fully die, they're not fully wiped out, Yvraine can use Word of the Phoenix to heal them back up and give them a little bit more power before they finally go into the shadows and join Ynnari. And from this moment on, if this maneuver is in fact successful, your opponent's going to be in a lot of trouble, because not only is he going to have to deal with 4 Warlocks, a Farseer, and Yvraine, plus the Falcon, but they're also going to have to deal with the Ynnari, which is going to be devastating enemy units in the area as well. So this is actually a very powerful alternative combination, an Alpha Strike, to the type of list that's making its way into all the top tournament spots for the Ynnari. And of course, I'm talking about the Void Raven Bomber, Hemlock Wraithfighter, and Ynnari combo that pretty much just aims towards devastating enemies on turn 1 when they're still in their deployment zone. Of course, if your enemy doesn't get turn 2 and gets turn 1 instead, this can be a little bit problematic for that type of army. This army, on the other hand, can pick and choose when it comes down. It can come down in either turns 1, 2, or 3, making it a little bit more flexible. And of course, you can also run this combination with a Hemlock Wraithfighter if you wanted to, and with a Void Raven Bomber. You could still kind of do the same things with it. It'd be a little bit less efficient to run it, I think, with the Hemlock Wraithfighter, in my opinion. But you could definitely run it alongside the Void Raven Bomber and get a very similar effect that's a little bit more versatile. So in conclusion, this is a very powerful psychic combination that's a little bit more versatile than the typical Ynnari Alpha Strike, that can average about 8 mortal wounds on average, or more if you use some Strands of Fate for psychic tests. On Smite, for example, you can get a lot more than this. Plus, it has really powerful shooting. Singing Spears, a Falcon, and the Ynnari can all come in and really devastate enemy units. And this combo is not only effective on its own, but it really becomes quite powerful when backed up with other elements of your army. So you don't want to just drop these guys in alone. Definitely plan to incorporate the Ynnari into this combination and other elements of fast, hard-hitting units that could basically just come in, devastate your enemy quickly, and then, of course, leave your opponent with little chance to retaliate. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for today. I will see you guys next time. And I know this was kind of a short video, but I did want to cover Yvraine a little bit because I think she can be very powerful when used with Warlocks, especially in a situation where she can basically come down and devastate enemy units with their combined psychic powers. All right, later this week, I do want to, well, I guess I should say next week now, I do want to reopen the possibility of doing a short live stream. And I haven't thought of the topic yet. I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about balance changes and stuff like that, but we'll see what kind of changes come over the weekend, and we'll kind of make our assessments based off that. I know GW has a couple of announcements coming up, so we'll stay tuned. I do want to talk about the release of the new Guard Codex as well and what that might mean for the Craftworld Eldar going forward. All right, everybody, that's going to be it. I'll see you guys later. Peace out, and have some good games this weekend, guys. Have a good one.